Good morning, everybody, and a happy Saturday morning to you. Oh my God, here we go again. All right, we have some royal family stuff. We have the next day of the royal tour. This was day 4, the last day. That's what we're covering this time. And then, of course, we have our Harry Meghan stuff, which is always plentiful. I called it, though. I told everybody she was going to show the children. She was going to do something, and Meghan did. She never disappoints. So let's just jump in and get busy and cover everything, shall we? Let's go. We're starting off today with Secret Weapon Sophie because on the 30th, she visited Willow Dean Farm. And this is a rehab center that focuses on vocational training for those facing life challenges. So while she was there, she toured the facility, fed a lamb, met with residents, unveiled a plaque. And again, this was to highlight the work of this residential rehab center, which aids individuals overcoming homelessness, addiction, and offending behavior. Thank you to Remoulade Sauce for showing us what Sophie was wearing. Let's move on to William, who interrupted his 15th wedding anniversary to send a message to Wales great George North, who announced his retirement from rugby at the end of the season. William posted a message on his and Catherine's Instagram account because remember, William is the patron of the Welsh Rugby Union, and he said, "Strength and speed on the pitch, George North at his very best." Mr. North himself put out a statement on X that says, "I just want to come on here and let you know at the end of the season I'm retiring." So good for him. Enjoy your retirement. We're going to move on now to Princess Anne, the Princess Royal. She sent a personal message to Sir David Attenborough. He's about to turn 100. Unbelievable. On May 8th, he's the world's most famous naturalist and has worked with various environmental charities. And one of them is the Whitley Fund for Nature, which Anne is the patron of. And so she sent out a video message. I love the pictures showing how he's been in Anne's life since she was a child. Sticking with Princess Anne, as patron of the Whitney Fund for Nature since 1999, she attended with her fabulous husband the 2026 Whitley Awards ceremony at the Royal Geographical Society in London. This is known as the Green Oscars because the ceremony honored grassroots conservation leaders, and Farwiza Farhan received the 2026 Whitley Gold Award. And since Anne is patron, of course, she provides the high-profile support to the environmental change makers. All right, let's move on. Okay, let's go back a day or two to cover a few things that happened with the King and Queen before we jump into day 4. First of all, I didn't know that the King's Trust Gala was sponsored by Newsweek. That's where Jack Royston works. But the evening exceeded expectations and raised over $3 million. And while Charles was there, he did give a speech, and he said, "I hesitate to make another speech, but as we look into the future, I won't see the long distance future. And I want those people here to champion the next generation." He's talking about his own mortality. Ugh. Now, the king also, while he was giving his speech, he's long-term friends with Lionel Richie. He heard that Lionel would not be, singing at this event. And this is what he said.
And with the help of people like Lionel Richie, I really minded he isn't singing this evening. Always a great treat. I don't know how he does it. He must gargle with port or something. Anyway, thank you.
What he said at the end was that Lionel Richie must gargle with port or something. Let's move on to Camilla before day 4. She described the first 3 days of her visit to the United States as good fun. She gave an interview to Jenna Bush Hager, if you guys remember her, and that happened while she was at the New York Public Library on Wednesday afternoon. The interview aired on Thursday, and there were questions like, "How's your trip been?" And the Queen goes, "It's been a whistle stop. It's been really good fun, but we've moved quite fast." And Jenna goes, "Oh, you've been to a lot of places." And she goes, "Well, yes, we have, but it's wonderful. Everybody's been kind and welcoming. It's such a pleasure to be here." Another interesting thing that came out was the son-in-law to Queen Camilla, Harry Lopes. He's the CEO of Eden Renewables. He was at the White House State Dinner. I don't think a lot of people knew that, but he was there. Let's move on now to day 4. Charles and Camilla went back to the White House to bid a formal goodbye to Trump and First Lady Melania in the diplomatic reception room after they spent the day in New York. They arrived in an official car. They were greeted by Trump and his wife outside of the South Portico. They, arranged on the red carpet, stood for photos, and Trump pointed at Charles and said, "He's a great king." And asked what his favorite part of the visit was. Charles replied, but he was so far away from the reporters, nobody could hear what he said. I've said it before, and I'm going to say it again. I'm exceedingly happy that the United States pulled out all the stops and did such a great show for Charles and Camilla, because that the king and the queen pulled out all the stops for Trump and Melania when they went to the UK. So I'm glad that the United States rolled out the red carpet and really, gave Charles a good welcome. I like that. Now, again, do I think that Trump breached with Charles the topic of Harry? No, I don't think he did. I don't think that ever came up. I think Trump understands that Harry is a wayward son and he's got no control over him. And but this just goes to show you these royal tours. This really puts the stamp on the fact that these royal tours that Harry takes are really a joke. Yeah, this was well done. Now, let me just point out something this is going to be a little different. Camilla chose to wear a denim blue wool dress designed by Anna Valentine for the farewell ceremony at the White House, but she accessorized with a Tiffany brooch, and the brooch was a gift from the First Lady during the Windsor State meeting. Let me tell you guys that I have loved every outfit that Camilla and Melania wore throughout this entire trip. And a big thank you to Remoulade Sauce, as usual, for showing us what the ladies were wearing on this last day, as well as my moderator, Carol M. Now, here is everything that happened before that, okay? Charles and Camilla went to Arlington National Cemetery for an Armed Forces Full Honors wreath-laying ceremony at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. There was a 21-gun salute as they entered the cemetery, and it took place on the final day we know of their royal visit. They were escorted by commanding generals of the Joint Task Force National Captain Region and the U.S. Army Military District of Washington. Unbelievable. They stood at attention as the United States Army Band played God Save the King and the Star-Spangled Banner. At the tomb, the king laid a wreath composed of red poppies, which is a symbol of remembrance in the British Commonwealth going back to World War I. It also had a note from the king that read, "In everlasting remembrance." The queen then placed a bouquet of red, white, and purple flowers next to the wreath. Now, for those of you who don't know, the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier itself embodies the two nations' deep and historic connection. It was dedicated November 11th of 1921 with the burial of an unknown soldier from World War I. The tomb at Arlington was partly inspired by Britain's Tomb of the Unknown Warrior at Westminster Abbey, which was dedicated exactly 1 year earlier. All three unknowns, which represent American service members who died in World War I, World War II, and the Korean War, fought in conflicts in which the United States and Britain were allies. After the wreath-laying ceremony, they greeted the couple. They went up the stairs inside the Memorial Amphitheater. It was beautiful, and it just shows the enduring bond that the United States and the United Kingdom has, and it stands really as a testament to their shared history and sacrifice. The king also stopped at the Canadian Cross of Sacrifice, which is also in Arlington, and that monument honors Americans who, for whatever reason, moved by a sense of duty to fight or whatever, joined the Canadian Armed Forces. When they were done with that, they got in their car and they headed to what was going to be a block party. Now, there were crowds. I want you to hear how they reacted when they saw the king and the queen coming down the line. the king and queen got out of their cars, they were met by the Virginia governor, Abigail Spanberger, and the front royal mayor, Lori Cockrell. And they went with them during the festivities. Now, the king and queen watched a procession that came down Main Street. There were marching bands, cheerleaders, the town's community trolley, vintage vehicles from Britain and America, and then they were taken up to look at some of the food. The king toured the array of food and beverages assembled. Listen to what he said. For those of you who don't know, the king and queen added their own contribution, a British dish presented for fellow guests to enjoy. It's a potluck tradition is what they were seeing. It embodies the spirit of community, togetherness, and organizers wanted to, characterize this during the celebrations. Now, they also encountered representatives from organizations supporting domestic abuse survivors, emergency service personnel. There was a local scout group that was present. There were members of Virginia's state Little League team who had just won the previous summer. There was an agricultural showcase that had the Kerry Hill sheep. It's a breed with Welsh origins now being raised locally. The king loved it. There were beekeepers, flower growers, lots to see and do. At the end of this event, the two of them gave each other a quick little peck and they separated because King Charles then went to visit Shenandoah National Park to learn more about the national park system, their educational programs, what the rangers do, and the officials that are there to protect the unique environments for future generations. This park was established in 1935. It covers 200,000 acres of Virginia's Blue Ridge Mountains, and it welcomes almost 1.8 million visitors a year. King Charles even had the opportunity to join a swearing-in ceremony for a group of junior rangers and stamp a park passport with a stamp specially commissioned for the occasion. He also met Buddy, the bald eagle education ambassador. See the dog there. He also saw the Bark Ranger dog program. Now, additionally, Charles met with members of the Monacan Indian Nation, whose ancestral lands covered most of West Virginia. 2,000 registered members. This Indian Nation is one of the few remaining tribes in America that occupies land in their ancestral homeland. And this woman said she was very honored to meet the king in their historic territory. Now, additionally, the king unveiled 2 commemorative stones symbolizing a new partnership. This is very interesting, between the Shenandoah National Park and the Cairngorms in the Scottish Highlands. That's pretty cool. He mentioned that during his speech to Congress, that the Appalachian Range and the areas in the Highlands were once connected in prehistoric times before the continent split apart. And so the state visit marks the start of their official partnership. Now, while the king was doing that, Queen Camilla, who we know has a lifetime passion for horses, visited a farm in Middleburg, Virginia to highlight the work of the America's horse racing industry. So she stepped out to tour Smitten Farm in the Plains. She learned more about the sport that goes on in America, the industry-wide efforts to improve the health and welfare of resources, and opportunities for partnerships in horse racing between the U.S. and the U.K. Now, of course, she accepted, apparently the flowers came at the beginning from the farm manager's daughter, Violet. She did speak to breeders about their work and the veterinary research to improve the health and welfare of the horses. She also got to see some breeding mares and foals up close. She got to pet some of the horses, and she got to feed one a carrot. So we know how much she loves the animals. And she also then connected with guests that were representing the U.S. Jockey Club, including some thoroughbred breeders, owners, and conservationists. Very nice. So then it was time for them to say goodbye. The king was taken to the airport in, I believe that's called Marine One, which is the United States helicopter that's usually reserved for the president, if that's correct. And I did happen to notice that he was completely alone. And I was asking online, what happened to the Queen? Why is he leaving by himself? Well, come to find out that he's heading on to Bermuda by himself, and the Queen is heading back to the UK. I don't know if that's what was planned all along, but that's what happened. So the king waves goodbye and heads off to Bermuda, and then a video popped up of Queen Camilla just casually walking through the airport as she's headed back to the UK. I was a little surprised when I saw this video why they didn't take her in a secure entrance, why they literally didn't take her around the back. Why parade her through the airport? My goodness. Now, another picture has come out that I absolutely love. This is a picture on the 29th. The Empire State Building and the JP Morgan Chase Building were illuminated with this. I think that's beautiful. One more picture was put out, and that is a picture that was taken while Charles and Camilla were in Washington. It's a new official photograph, and they released it to mark the end of their state visit. Now, Charles is arriving in Bermuda. We're going to cover that on Monday. The only thing that's really changed is there was a picture of Charles' visit to a church in 1982 with Diana, who was pregnant with William at the time. It's been removed from the display case to spare the king any possible embarrassment, and instead they put a different picture of Charles. The one thing, though, that I think people are getting upset about is that while gardeners are out, trimming roadsides and painters are applying touch-ups to businesses and homes, they are actually out hunting feral chickens, the wild chickens that infest the island. And they're saying, they're going to crow and they may wake the prince up. So, of course, they're a problem for farmers also. They eat the crops, they eat the fruit. There's a noise issues. They crow all night. So they're saying that what they do is they trap them, sedate them, and euthanize them. I don't think Charles will be happy about that. Now, we're going to move on from here. I want to thank Mega Yacht Grifter for pointing out that Meghan's candles that probably cost about $4 each to manufacture with overhead, and that she's charging over $60 for, and her 8 pieces of candy, which are also not sold out, and the honey and jam that needs to go before it expires. I mean, this is really becoming desperate. So the chocolate's not selling, and Meghan decides it's time to put up a video on her Instagram stories Thursday night. And she shows this guy, basically she shows herself. You barely see the guy. She's smiling and trying to look all nice. You see a lot of teeth. She shows off the chickens, and look at her, it's all her. And she's trying to look good in the camera, and she flips it around, and then you hear the children talking. And what did I tell you guys on Twitter? I told everybody on Twitter there was no way that this lady was going to let this trip go by without her putting something out. And of course, we saw that King Charles put something out. So of course, she's going to do the same thing. I want you to hear it, though. I'm going to have to block it out, but you can hear it. Listen to this.
The chocolate man comes to see the chickens. Compartes is here. And there's Phil and Jill.
Amazing.
Thanks, sweetheart.
Oh, there we go. Oh my God, you feel it pecking. Oh.
So that is the guy, thank you to Flutterby's on Twitter. That's the guy that makes the chocolate. And as you can see, the reviews are not good. I'm pretty sure that it didn't pass by anybody without notice that the king had just fed chickens. So of course, this is what she's going to put out. But I think, it's hilarious that she thinks that this kind of stuff will take the attention away and put it back on her. It makes her look manic. It makes her look sick. A big thank you to Mod PR on Twitter for pointing out that that's Archie and Lily standing over there to the left. Lily's wearing a pink dress. So my guess would be that this was probably done at the same time as Easter. That would be my guess. Of course, People magazine, their go-to, comes out. Oh, such a sweet thing, such a sweet gesture, such a sweet nickname, blah, 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 blah. We know what this is. Not gonna lie, I'm getting to the point where I'm just downright embarrassed for her. Another note, Meghan is still trying to insist that she and Harry did a royal tour in Australia. She gave an interview to Women's Weekly, and she talked about her love for Australia, how the international trip went because it was a jam-packed itinerary that had philanthropic endeavors. She loved learning about the Indigenous culture and Australian sport, and that she just loves the Australian people. We have such an affinity for it. And this is where it starts to get embarrassing. People magazine again, that the Duchess of Sussex, who starred on the network series until 2017, said in an interview with Australian Women's Weekly that she's using Australian brands and that one of the outfits she wore reminded her of her former character, Rachel Zane. And then she goes on about, I wore it to MasterChef Australia because it's a button-down shirt and a sleek pencil skirt. It's so Rachel Zane. And felt like I was back on set. Blah, blah, blah. Nobody's rediscovering Suits because nobody heard of it before she met Harry. And she's also coming out to say, over the last years, I would hear an incorrect designer getting credit for something I wore through affiliate links or the press, and that just didn't seem fair. Credit where credit is due. These brands and designers work so hard and they take great pride in their work, and I choose them for a reason. And she's talking about the one-off, which I would never shop on. And finally, we all remember when Meghan was introduced as royalty during her television appearance on MasterChef. We all remember that while she was doing something different from Harry. Now, apparently, she's still cultivating her lifestyle brand centered on cooking and wellness. And in the teaser, she's described as, we've had MasterChef royalty in the kitchen before, but not like this. Well, apparently, there was a very clear and deliberate guidance issued ahead of filming that there should be no references tying Meghan to royal status. They were to be avoided in all promotional material. So when the line was delivered on camera, it took her team by surprise and immediate concern about how, it would be interpreted once it reached a wider audience because supposedly, allegedly, Harry and Meghan had an issue. It wasn't just the wording, but it represented a bigger picture. They're trying to shape a distinct identity for their brand that isn't defined by royal association. Okay, well, number one, that's a lie because they are using the titles everywhere they go. They use those titles to get police protection. She wants the Royal Association because otherwise people wouldn't even look twice at her. Reports are saying she was unaware of the comment at the time it was filmed. Okay, it could have been removed. It could have been retaped. She wasn't in the room. It wasn't retaped and it wasn't redone because Meghan wanted it there. I mean, how many times are we going to have to go through this narrative? It's a joke. All right, you guys, now you know what I want. Oh my God, I want your comments. Make them good. Don't forget to hit the like and the subscribe button and the bell for all notifications. Then go down into the description box where you'll find the link to my Twitter, my Gettr, my Rumble, my email, a link to my father's book, which remains up for sale on Amazon, a link to my Amazon wish list, as well as a physical address. For those of you who have donated to my coffee fund, thank you so much. And as always, you guys, have a great day.